I am so excited for this interview right now. When I think of my childhood, I think of this gentleman today. I cannot wait to talk to him. What an honor it is to talk to the one and only Craig DeGeorge. Craig, thank you so much for joining me.
Your childhood, I grew up listening to you on your podcast. What are you talking about? It's an honor for me.
Awesome. That's great. Oh man, Craig, it's so funny. Like, I don't know if you watch wrestling these days, but what I loved about what you did when you came out, you knew something was going down. You gave the news. You had you weren't out there in mixed tags every week. You know what I mean? You weren't dressed up in funny outfits. You had credibility. So when I saw Craig DeGeorge on my TV, the eighth grader in me, shut up, everybody. Something important is about to be announced. You know what I mean? You were like the voice of the news for me. It was awesome.
You know what? Thank you, Mike. I really do think that's why Vince hired me. Is I didn't come from a wrestling background, though I was a fan like everybody else. Grew up watching wrestling in the '70s on Channel 9 in New York, where I grew up. But the way I got hired was a gentleman named Phil Hartman. I met at Madison Square Garden when I interned there, and he moved over to Vince. And of course, when you're at MSG, you're in a news environment. You're covering Rangers, Knicks, things that are going on around the Garden, typical sports. Phil knew that about my background. I went to Syracuse. I had a job as a sportscaster in another city. And so I came with that kind of, resume. It wasn't going to be a screaming wrestling guy. It was sort of be a guy who had a little feel for humor at the same token, and could bounce with a punch, but also could deliver you, an update or whatever that was going on, move the storyline along in a different way than maybe guys have done in the past. So thank you. I enjoyed it. It was great. And it's great to still be around the wrestling world, still be involved in my own little way.
Love it. What were your first impressions of Vince McMahon?
Well, I remember the interview. He was behind a big desk, and it was I wouldn't say intimidating, but you felt his presence. But I was very confident in what I did, and I think he appreciated that. And I loved him. He reminded me of my baseball coach in high school, where he didn't let you get away with anything. You were accountable, but you knew you were getting better every day by whatever he did, because he just was the master. And so that's how I looked at it. Sort of a tough coach. I really enjoyed it. I worked pretty closely with him, because some of the things I did, he would literally be talking to me about this or that. Maybe it's not like that now. And not all the time. I would go to Baltimore, Maryland, where we did our Owings Mills, where we did a lot of our shoots. Obviously, he wasn't there for that, but it was an honor to work with him. It really was.
What was like an average month for you? Like how many live events?
It was very interesting. I will tell you this: my friends were all jealous. You're not. What do you work? I mean, at first, I was. I was in West Virginia. I got this job, and it's a great job. And I moved back home for the brief time on Long Island. And I figured at some point I'm going to, move to Stamford, Connecticut. And so after about 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I called somebody in the office, and I said, when do you guys want me in Stamford? And because this never came up for some reason. It would today, but it never came up then. And they said, no, you don't have to come to Stamford. I said, well, why not? He says, because we do the production out of Owings Mills, and basically you're going to be flying out of the airport. So we're just get closer. So I just stayed at my mother's house for the years I was there, and I was traveling, out of Islip Airport for the most part. So I would go to events. I would go to shows every 3 weeks when they did the TV taping. I would go down to Owings Mills to do production, or I would go to the non-TV tapings to do interviews, depending on where the wrestlers were.
Interesting. Wow. Now, there's a lot of unwritten locker room rules. There's a lot of wrestling etiquette. How were you received by the wrestlers? Did anybody give you any kind of pull you aside and say, listen, this is the way we do things here? Anybody give you any advice how to handle the wrestlers?
No, advice from the wrestlers themselves. It was nothing really. It was more from the TV people. The wrestlers were great. It's different than when you're doing what I did there versus covering sports, because you're sort of on the same team. You're all trying to move the ball in the same direction. And I help them, and they can help me too. And obviously with the personalities they are, it spoils you because they were good on camera.
Who was your favorite guy to work with?
But there were so many. Mike, I don't want to. I will to give you some names, but and I'm going to forget names. First of all, I've covered the World Series, the Stanley Cup, the NBA, every sport possible. There's nothing more exciting. I won't say there haven't been events that were as exciting, but when I brought Hulk Hogan into the ring and I was standing on some podium in the middle of 18,000 screaming fans with that music, and I got the mic, and here he is, Hulk. You get chills.
Yeah.
You get chills. And not just Hogan, but the crowd was always into it. Whether it was somebody like Ron Bass who was, snapping that Miss Betsy at me, or Andre the Giant, or these legends. It was super, super exciting. And WrestleMania 4, I was at WrestleMania 3. I was a part of it, but not on the broadcast. I did something else for a highlight show. But those were good times.
Any crazy botches? Anything you had to redo? Anything that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I remember one time I was going out to the podium, and if fans don't know what I'm talking about, we used to do, if you look at the old interviews, we used to do once in Superstars, I think once in Challenge, a live interview on a raised podium, right in the crowd, lights, and everybody be quiet. My mic was also going to the audience. And so I was going out to do the interview. My button popped on my jacket. And Vince was a stickler. I knew about things like this. But I didn't have time to tell anybody. I'm going out. I got to get on there before the wrestler comes out. And it was right around the holidays. And I said something like, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, blah, blah, blah. Let's bring on. I do my whole intro. The music starts. I forgot who it was, but it was somebody a big name. And like about halfway through the guy walking out, all of a sudden the music went. Remember, the whole crowd is watching, right? The music went like this. And now I'm standing there. Then I see out of the shadows, oh God, that looks like Vince. Is he coming closer? He is coming closer. Uh-oh, he's coming right at me. He's coming to me. So now I got to lean down. Everybody sees this, right? It's not behind the scenes. I lean down. He goes, forget this. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. And why isn't your jacket? But don't ever come out here without your jacket button. So the jacket, the button popped up. All right, well. So then we had to redo it again, all over again. I'm sure there were a million other ones, but I never forgot that one.
How'd you like working with Gorilla Monsoon?
I didn't do color with him, but I did get to work on the shows with him. What a great man. I did work with Bruno Sammartino with doing play-by-play and color on the UWF shows, which I did. But Gorilla was great. What a great man. I miss him. So sad you think about how great he was and what a nice guy he was. And obviously his son, the late Joey Morella, another great guy.
Any good Bobby Heenan stories?
Boy, the funniest thing to me was when he had the neck brace on, and his neck was fine, and wherever he went, he had to wear that neck brace. I think it was for 4 months. The airport, you'd see the neck brace, hotels, checking in, everywhere he went, his neck was fine, but he had to wear that neck brace. He wasn't somebody I had a beer with. I was a young guy, but he was always respectful. And also, better than that, he was always Bobby Heenan to me, which was almost like an honor, because he ripped me and shred me to pieces, and it was so funny. Some of his lines, I look back at old interviews, and some of his shots at me were hilarious. I didn't even remember some of them, but it was fun being on the receiving end of a Bobby Heenan jab. I'll tell you that.
Any good Jesse Ventura stories? Did you work with him at all?
I did a little on these dark matches, a little play-by-play with Jesse, but not a lot. But yeah, the one I do remember was we got a huge, it was a letter. It was always kind of cool checking your mail, and you get that WWF nice gold logo with the outline of the WWF in the left corner. It was a cool envelope next to, Ronco's CDs and cassette tape offers, all the other crap, Publishers Clearinghouse, and then you got that nice logo. So I was always excited to open it up. where I lived at my mom's house at the time. Open up the letter. Attention announcers, everybody's copy. Of course, there was no emails then. You had to send mail. So it said, do not use the word, quote, dog nap when referring to Matilda. The ASPCA is on us. This group is on us.
Wow.
Cannot use the word dog nap on any future shows. Do not use this term. Signed, I think it was Vince and everybody. Copy. Gene. First show, I swear, 5 minutes into the show. Superstars. I got the earpiece. Jesse Ventura. Well, Matilda was dog napping, man. And I'm like, I don't believe it. I mean, it was a big deal. Do not use it in the meetings. He didn't care. He was great.
That's hilarious. Why'd you leave?
Why did I leave the WWF? I actually got let go. The guy that hired me had left. A new guy came in. They wanted to go in a different direction. I was surprised. I was actually shocked. I thought Vince really liked what I did. Never got a full explanation. I think it was just the gentleman. I'm not going to name the gentleman, but he wasn't from a TV background. He was from a wrestling background. Look, I'm a broadcaster. I'm a broadcast writer. I know how to write a story in broadcast style. I think we were on the wrong wavelength. It's a shame. I would like to spend more time there, but I ended up getting back to kind of what I was probably on here to do, is do normal sports. And I'm glad I had the run there. There were no regrets, and I got to do other wrestling things after. But I would have been nicer to play it out a little longer.
Let's talk 80s Con 4. Number 4, we're talking the Men in the Arena, Morristown, New Jersey, May 6th. We have Bret Hart. We have the Powers of Pain. We have the Killer Bees, the Beverly Brothers, Demolition, Nikita Koloff. We have Craig DeGeorge. Now that you and I are thick as thieves, best of friends, we're going to be hanging out tonight before Craig. So we're going to have a great time.
And look, I just hope people remember who I was, because I played just a little role in those days compared to all those big names you just named. A lot of them I interviewed on a regular basis. And, it's been a long, long time. Some of those guys, the only thing that has given it, I would say this, for somebody like me who wasn't a wrestler, is given it life, is that WWF rerunning a lot of this stuff on one of their networks. And then obviously YouTube, people going back to maybe the greatest time, certainly the launching pad, but it was also so big in wrestling history. And that's saying a lot, because they had great years before that. And certainly they've had an incredible run after that. But that was sort of the heyday of the WWF and going mainstream.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Randy Savage. You didn't see wrestlers in the 70s on national commercials or respected in the movie ranks or Hollywood. It was huge. And I was in the middle of it, only as a broadcaster, but I got to be that close to it, you could smell it, and it was, even being there in the afternoon when they were putting the lights, and I was always amazed. Bird Manning was the guy who would set every light to a certain spot in the crowd. And the way the TV it was big time production. And so for me, it was a thrill to be part of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing the guys, seeing fans, maybe older people will remember me, or maybe people who just caught me from a video and whatever impact I may have made to get the message along.
Awesome. Well, Craig, I certainly remember you. This was a huge thrill for me. Huge thrill. I can't thank you enough, and I will see you May 6th.
See you soon. Can't wait. I'll see wrestling fans. I can't wait to see you guys out there. Craig DeGeorge is coming back.